Yeah, I'd like to piggyback. First of all, thank you for that response, Nicoletta. And I really look forward to reading your book, actually. So I'm very glad that you've written it and that you've put some, some, I'm sure, policy suggestions forward and interacting with multilateral development banks. I just want to mention here about the ecosystem of policy, corporate influence, national leaders, the government leaders. It is a complex ecosystem of money and power that is keeping deforestation happening. That is keeping. I read somewhere recently that Americans eat on average 500 pounds of animal products a year. I just can't even imagine this. How is that possible? But that keeps that much food on plates. It's going to take political will, to your final point, Nicoletta, about politicians who are supposed to be keeping humanity, are supposed to be acting in the interests of the billions of people who sit beneath the tiny number of bazillionaires who are profiting from this animal exploitation. I hope that we can find some political will, and not just at the national levels where, yes, the US needs to decrease its animal protein consumption. There is no way around it. And the same thing for the EU and the UK, and it's sadly that the FAO comes out and says, well, maybe not. That's really problematic. But again, this is more influence in the ecosystem. But I just want to go back to, we need to pull apart these various pieces. We need to identify the centers of power. We need to see where we can push. And so I'm looking forward to reading your book, Nicoletta, because I really want to, where can we leverage? Where do citizens have at least some power? What arguments are going to move people out of this kind of just sort of corporate neoliberal, thank you, Jared, for this like push forward of just technologizing and financializing and privatizing all natural resources and all human rights, of which food should certainly be one. So this goes to the deforestation question, how do we stop it? Well, so far we have corporate commitments to stop it, which is just about corporates trying to level the playing field, but get subsidies to somewhere else to make sure that they have no dip in profits, if in fact they decide to abide their voluntary commitment to stop deforesting, which there's no reason to expect they will, in no small part because the Brazilian government is no way going to say, Cargill, get out. That will never happen. It just won't. So it's not a very happy note or a helpful note, but I just want to say that this is not an easy, it's not an easy problem to solve. Like you said, Nicoletta, at the beginning of your comments, no silver bullet here. I think there are different solutions, different regions, different political levers we may or may not be able to push. I see the question in the chat about poverty has already been globalized, and the question from taking the food system and taking the choice from poor nations to decide their food policies is they can no longer afford the environmental inputs. Now wealthy nations get to decide global food policy. I think that is a major problem. And I would point to the Gates Foundation and the International Finance Corporation that are helping spread factory farming across Africa, beginning with what they call smallholder farms that are not smallholder farms. There's KFC wants to expand across Africa. This is like pure factory farming, bad for people, bad for animals, bad for the environment, bad for health, bad for everything. And this is just pure corporate interest, but that veil of philanthropy and public money and public policy that is actually damaging to the countries it's supposed to serve is really troubling. So again, this is not the most helpful comment here, perhaps. I just want to point out that it's not easy. And the more people learn about the systems and the complexity and the different power structures and the ways in which they can perhaps agitate or, learn more, have an impact, I think the better off that we're all going to be.